I remember a few years back at Gamescom 2017, first seeing the announcement trailer for Biomutant. I had fears of it getting cancelled because there was long periods of silence and no real updates, and then just it seems to be over the last year or so, started getting some more game footage, we got a release date, and now it's finally here. I didn't get a review code for this, it's not sponsored or anything, so I've been playing this on or off, working my way through the story, and it's safe to say so far the critics have been a bit all over the place with this one. Some slamming the game entirely, and others praising it, and so I wanted to put a review together of my thoughts on the game, how I've found it, and who I think this game is for, who will enjoy this type of game, and is it something you should be picking up if you haven't already done so. So just before we jump in, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and we'll be doing more reviews as well as streaming tips and general gaming news in the near future. So make sure you subscribe to catch all those when they drop. You can also come hang out with me on Twitch at twitch.tv/ProRogueBear. With all of that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, here is my review of Biomutant. Set on the backdrop of a post-apocalyptic world left behind by the humans who drove it to destruction, you play as a furry creature who has adapted due to the environments and changes in the world. It's kind of like a fox, ferret, raccoon kind of mix, but here you can create the creature to exactly how you want. You start your journey in a very in-depth character creation system, choosing your avatar for the playthrough ahead. You start by picking a template as your breed, and then there's a morph style tool that changes the look of your character whilst also impacting stats like strength, intelligence, agility, and so on. The taller, leaner creature may be higher in agility, while the brash, jacked up little guy is loaded with strength and not a lot of anything else. In my playthrough, I went with a charisma agility build to be nice and nimble throughout the chaos. You can then choose your resistances, which will aid you in exploration and combat. Choose your fur colors, and then you move on to picking your class. The class system has 5 to choose from normally. You get a 6th if you pre-ordered, and that's called the Mercenary class. But the standard 5s that you get are called the Deadeye, Commando, the Psy-Freak, Saboteur, and the Sentinel. From what I've seen, this mainly affects your starting clothes and your starting perks. Each class has its own perk tree, and then there's a general perk tree that all classes share. So depending on your class, you may start with one of these general perks already unlocked, but another class can unlock those later. It's really the class perks that are unique. So if you were really wanting to go through all of these, multiple playthroughs would be needed. You wanted to try all the specific class perks out, but I found they tended to be a bit more kind of generic with the stats. Extra dodge energy, dodge cost is reduced. Increased armor, it's more stat gains and cooldown reductions rather than anything wide reaching with the variation of your playstyle. So once you've sorted all that out, then just as seamlessly as you entered character creation from the opening cinematic, you are thrown into the beautiful world of Biomutant.
But for you, it's not only a crossroad, but a choice, a reflection of your ki, the primal energy that flows through everything.
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm the dark side of you, your inner voice to be precise, an echo of the balance and consequence of your actions as you move forward.
So glad you realize who you really are. Let's keep to the bright and better path moving on.
So let's jump into the world, looking at the exploration aspect and questing, because this is an open world RPG. And when it comes to the actual world itself and the map and everything like that you're going to be exploring around, I loved it. What they've created is stunning. It's 8 kilometers by 8 kilometers, all varied environments and biomes. And there's some cracks beneath the surface as we get into specifics I'll go into, but the game world you can jump into and explore, I'm very impressed. It has a very distinct vibe, with a nature taking back theme, old roads and railways crumbling and becoming overgrown, huge forests and open fields sprawling in front of you, and the leftovers of humanity with old nuclear plants and villages and shopping malls, all in disrepair and long since forgotten. The world map itself is nicely done too, with a recreation of the world map with quite a lot of detail. I actually found this helped me to learn the areas and retrace my steps when I was exploring or looking around for materials or bunkers to explore. It does have the Ubisoft feel of map markers and quests and icons, but I feel there's a lot of space to breathe, and it's not overly cluttered as some games can feel that way. The premise of the game is simple. Side with a tribe, unite the rest of the tribes, there are 6 in total, and then have a hand in saving or ending the world, depending on your light or dark alignment that you wish to choose. The light and dark aura works quite nicely and actually impacts what skills you can have, so it feels a little bit like Knights of the Old Republic, where you can only have certain powers if you're the right alignment for that skill, for example. There are plenty of opportunities to impact this as well, and you have an angel devil on your shoulder scenario playing out from time to time as they try to fight for your attention. It's a nice touch, and it can help with adding a bit more longevity. You could have another playthrough doing a light only or a dark only playthrough, for instance. The world has its issues, and although the environments are amazing, I find the actual assets within the game to be very much a copy and paste job. You know, from the villages, the inhabitants, the outposts, the random old buildings you find that are crumbling, and the empty inner environments that every outpost has. Each outpost has this one room that has this one chest in it, that has this random piece of loot. You know, it's fresh the first time you do it, but after the 6th or 7th time, it definitely gets repetitive here as you know where it's going to be. After the 3rd fixer-upper house you come across to plunder, the layout is all the same, and it seems everyone had 1 or 3 different houses, and some fared better over time than others. It can break the immersion and the sense of wonder at times, which you have in Overdrive in the first 3 to 4 hours, I would say. I was just overwhelmed going into the world at the beginning, like, this is so awesome, exploring all these houses, exploring these bunkers and all these different areas, and then they start to show up again, and again, and again, and you start to almost get into a rhythm. I think this definitely affects the longevity of the game for sure. On the other side of things, where I feel like you can find this game quite repetitive much more quickly because there aren't, you know, unique individual environments from one to the next. What I mean by that in terms of the environments, you know, the biomes are all nice and varied. There's nice clear kind of areas and you know, where you can draw a line from one area to the next. But it's mainly around the buildings and the design around those places and the housing and stuff like that. It can feel very, very familiar, very copy and paste, which I'm sure is just a time issue and a design issue. So this is an RPG though. There are quests, there are side quests, there's XP, rewards, crafting, and all sorts to go through. Main quests tend to revolve around the tribe battles and the world eaters, which are big area bosses similar to those in Zelda Breath of the Wild, and they underpin some of the main plot. So I won't go into too much detail with them. The tribe quests are made up of take out 3 outposts, then take out a fortress. The tribe chief surrenders, and the tribe joins yours. You've conquered them, on you go to do the rest. The 3 outposts have a similar mechanics, and that's the same for all of the other 5 tribes. You know, one is a fight through 3 waves of sections, and you claim the outpost for yourself. One, you go to another area nearby, and you do something which claims the outpost automatically without even stepping foot inside. I like what they've done in terms of trying to vary it, but it's the same 3 patterns or strain of pattern for every outpost that you do. So it becomes, you know, something where when you're fighting one tribe and you go on to the second tribe, again, it has that repetition creeping in again. Once you've done all 3 of those, the fortresses, you know, they're the big one. That's the one that's gonna bring the tribe over to your side. And the fortresses tend to be, you know, you set fire to some stuff to begin with. You 1v1 the tribe chief, and you can talk your way out of the fight if your charisma's high enough, or you can just pummel him into submission. I actually found these main quests to be a bit tedious and a bit dull. They felt rushed, cutting to cutscenes, showing your victory really quickly, and you kind of wonder how that works. You know, you've killed 3 enemies, and the next moment, you know, you're planting a flag in the ground, claiming you've won the outpost, and it seemed like that entire outpost had like 3 enemies and a turret, and that was it, defending it, and it felt a bit light, and it felt a little bit kind of cheap at times that you've just taken over this whole outpost, and it wasn't some epic battle, you know, it wasn't an odyssey for the ages, and I feel like they missed the mark with that a little bit. The outposts themselves tend to be quite sparse as well, although you can find NPCs and merchants some outposts once conquered. Some of the NPCs might have a side quest here or there. They have a little exclamation mark above their head, and the merchants you can buy and sell stuff from, and you know, you can kind of gear up and on to the next one. The developers clearly felt this was also a bit tedious, because after you've beaten the first 2 tribes, and there's 6 tribes in total, including your own one, you then have the option for the other 3 tribes to throw in the towel and join you. So they straight up surrender. They just go, you know what, mate? Let's not bother and just team up. It's such a weird, jarring decision, and I can only think those that hate themselves the most would choose not to do this and continue doing each tribe one by one. There doesn't seem to be any penalty for not doing that, other than potentially, you know, not getting as much XP and stuff like that. But since enemies tend to scale around your level anyway, you're not more disadvantaged by doing this. It literally is just a fast forward to basically just get all 6 tribes all together and move on to the next quest point. So it's an odd one. It's an odd decision. I'm glad it was included, but it does make you feel that it's the quest structure and design could have been different. You know, it's good that they didn't make us just trawl through it, because I think, yes, you know, by the time you're doing the 5th or 6th tribe, it gets grating. And so I like on the one hand that they've respected the gamer's time here, but it's a little bit odd. Side quests are a mixed bag. Some repeat, classic fetch quests, go here, do that, kill that. And others are quite fun, and an exploration aspect of stumbling across a person or a landmark and following a quest off the back of that was really cool. I like that, you know, stumbling across like a notice board, and then you just start following the tracks and everything like that, and then before you know it, you're in this new area and there's lots of stuff to explore and chests to open. I really like that kind of leading you, felt quite organically, rather than just everything map marked and go here, go there, go, you know, and do all that kind of stuff. I found some of the progression quests, like when you need to upgrade tools or fetch multiple items, they don't really respect your time though. I think they, it's a little bit of a joke sometimes. One quest sent me like 2 kilometers to the other side of the map, and then once I got there, it then sent me 3 kilometers to the other direction, and then I've got to come back, obviously. And you know, there is fast travel, and the fast travel is very, very quick. It is very good. I found it loaded very good on an NvMe. It's just one of those things though where, you know, on the one hand you want to go and explore. I like to try and explore in these games rather than fast travel, you know, see what's about and everything like that. But some of these was just, yeah, it was just not respecting the time, and you're just backtracking over things. I think, you know, if you're doing these quests at endgame where you've unlocked a lot of the fast travel, then you probably wouldn't, you would just fast travel, and you probably wouldn't be too put out from what the quest is asking you to do. But, you know, you're traveling all this way to pick up an item and then just come back. There's not like a big scenario or a big setup or anything like that. There's no payoff, and it feels a little bit like they're just giving you something to do, just so you can, you know, they can just keep you in the game a little bit longer, and doesn't feel rewarding or necessarily kind of fair. I want to make it clear though, not all quests are like this in Biomutant, but it definitely has a fair few of them that will throw this up. The good thing with side quests is that you can just leave them in your journal though, and you can come across them. So as you're exploring new areas, you can have a look and see which like blue side quests are nearby. And that's kind of the approach I started to take, was just okay, I'll get to that when I get to that, and keep playing through the main quests, and then pick up a few side quests when I was in each new area, and just go from there really. So how does it all look and run? The footage you've been watching has all been on PC, and that is a version on Steam I'm playing, and it's running at 4K, around 90 FPS on average. I do have a very good machine, you know, I've got an RTX 3090 and an i9 9900K. There's a wealth of graphics options to tweak and to get the performance you were looking for. Resolution scales seem to work much better than the adaptive resolution that's there. There's no DLSS or anything like that, but I think it's fairly well optimized from what I can see. I've never had any crashes or graphic glitches or errors, which is really good. There are some bugs in the game when it comes to gameplay, although this is mainly with traversal, you know, getting stuck trying to Skyrim climb a mountain or something. You know, there's some things where you think you can climb up it and you just can't, and sometimes you can get then trapped in the textures or something like that. Nothing you can't like just spam jumping out of, but nothing like performance wise. You know, it might be gameplay wise rather than a graphical or a performance bug. It never dropped below that rock solid 4K 60 frames, and that was impressive. The game is very pretty. It seems to be very demanding in terms of, you know, the draw distance and everything. It renders beautifully, you know, lighting, shadows, draw distance is all very impressive. I didn't notice too much pop in either, and you know, some of the textures you can have a look at, and it's a little bit low quality here and there. All in all, I think this game plays and it looks very good, which I think is why some people who have already played it, as well as any other reviews, potentially been lured in by a great looking game, and then maybe some of the systems and the gameplays let it down. Systems. So many systems. It feels like even 10 hours into the game, you're getting tutorials on yet another system within the game, and it feels like they've done a lot of things good, but not necessarily amazing. Maybe like a jack of all trades, master of none, if you will. Leveling allows you to pick up a +10 stat boost, you get a visual representation of what it affects, and you get a skill point that you can put into the perk. Either one of those general ones or a class specific one like I mentioned earlier. This means that after character creation, you could backpedal and turn your intelligence focused mammal into a strength focused tool of destruction. You can't change your class, or not from what I can see, but you can adapt and change your character progression and steer towards specialization or being more of an all-rounder. You can change the look of your character at certain points in the map, but these don't affect stats. It's just a visual kind of cosmetic change. Just to note, there are no microtransactions or anything like that. So it's something where you go fight the enemy, and then there's something there where you can change the genetic makeup of your mutant and you can change the look of them basically. And you know, this is an RPG, so leveling feels quite good in this game. I found levels came regularly. I didn't feel there was a real grind. My stats were affected by my level ups, you know, the +10 and everything like that. The perks, it felt like decent progression. It felt like I was getting stronger, felt like I was getting more capable. Although there's a little bit to be desired with the perks. I found some of the perks are a little bit, you know, they're not quite Fallout or KOTOR kind of stuff. And I know I'm comparing this maybe unfairly a lot to BioWare kind of stuff, but you know, it's very much like 10% this, 20% that, 10% cooldown reduction, you know, that kind of stuff. And you know, there's the odd perk where it's like, oh cool, you can dual wield the weapon now, and you know, some things like that. I would have liked to have seen a bit more of that, but I guess that's where they left things for your kind of mutations and your powers. And for those things, I'll jump into that a bit more in the combat. There's no respecking or changing anything about your character, and your level cap is level 50, so you've got plenty of levels to put your stats just how you want them. I agree with the idea that it's unlikely two players will have the same exact character with how varied it all is, and I think that's definitely something that's worth commending, and how it can keep it all fairly balanced. I think, you know, obviously enemies seem to scale. It's not quite I don't think it's quite a straightforward linear scaling that we're seeing. But you'll tend to find that enemies are always around your level or a few levels above your level. So this is good because on the one hand, as you progress, your XP is consistent, which I think aids to the fact of, you know, you're getting those regular level ups, you're getting regular progression, and there's never anything where I've gone, right, I'm going to sit here and grind these enemies out. Especially since it seems to be that enemies don't tend to respawn, or at least from certain points anyway, they don't seem to respawn in certain areas. So you can clear out a place and enemies won't come back. I don't know if that's a time thing, if I just need to sit there or just keep fast forwarding the days and then maybe a week later they come back. But from what I found, once I've cleared an area out, those enemies are gone and they're not there anymore. And so that is something that I think is why they've done the level scaling, because at least you're never feeling like you have to go back and grind or do anything like that. So props to them for that. It seems to flow quite nicely. Looting can be a bit weird. Usually you find rare loot here and there, as well as your standard green kind of rubbish loot, and follows the normal loot color tiers we're used to now in other games such as Borderlands and Destiny and stuff. You know, you got your blue, your greens, your golds, your reds, your purples, all those different items and so on. And sometimes I've had it where I'd get like a level 30 required item when I was like level 9. So I was like, right, I'm gonna have to put that into one side for a long time. I'm not sure if that was a bug or just random. Usually I did get stuff that was 4 or above my level, or sometimes a little bit lower. Whether that be gear or parts or build my own weapons. I'd say the vast majority of stuff is just junk that you're gonna either dismantle for crafting parts, or you will sell it to get some more of the in-game currency to buy some other things that you want. So with crafting, to be honest, I really enjoyed this crafting system. You can create some absolutely bonkers weapons, both melee and firearms, each with elemental effects, armor efficiency, crit chance, and so on. It's really well done. And the modules and the upgrades make exploration worth doing it even more so, as I found merchants didn't have a lot of stuff that I was looking for. I tend to find merchants always had like maybe 1 or 2 good items, but I quickly found that my items were better than what they were offering. And so I couldn't upgrade through them. I could only upgrade through finding other stuff and exploring, which I thought worked really well. The only letdown with crafting is the armor clothing crafting. This is a bit underwhelming. So on the one side, you have these absolutely gorgeous and outrageous looking weapons and all these different parts and things. And then clothing, you just kind of just stick a few spikes on, or some plugs or some nails, and you know, your armor has some different slots and they just kind of sit there floating, and it's just all very lackluster. And I guess they've gone for, you know, you've already got the item, like the clothing already has the look, so they don't want to mess with that too much. So just gonna slap a little spike on here or there, or, you know, you can clearly see as well that they're like the mods that have been attached. There's no integration of them like there is with the weapons. And yeah, it just kind of sits there. There's no real impact. It's mainly, you know, you're just doing it for the stat boost. I don't know, guys. I don't know. With this, I felt like they could have done a lot more here. There's a lot of cool looking items as well, but they just have shit stats. And there's no glamour or transmog system from what I could have found myself. So, you know, the panda mask face I found will never be used, because ultimately this is a stat heavy RPG and its stats sucked. And that's just the way it is. And you know, it can be a gold rare panda mask all you want, but it doesn't really stack up with that. Like some loot just doesn't match the stats or what it's offering based on its loot tier, and that's a little bit odd as well. So you spend a lot of time just trying to look at why is this item like a purple item compared to this item being a green one, and the green one is technically a bit better. Now moving on to audio, mixed bag. So let's start with the music first. I actually found this really good. It's light, it's calming, the combat music is good and punchy. I feel like just the music tracks fit well with this game, and it just knows the tone. Sometimes it can disappear when exploring, it can quickly cut from one track to another, but when it's here, it's really good. It'd be great to see it fade out and back in when moving from one area to another, but otherwise, it's really chill. It's zen, it fits. I actually really enjoyed it, and I thought the music just went well with this game. On the voice side, now, this is technically okay. Light and dark voice acting is okay. It's a bit low budget Fable, if I'm honest. But all the creatures in the game, they just mumble. They speak their own language. And you have the narrator, who is with you the entire time. And my god, does this guy not shut up. So much so that there's a slider in the settings to turn his frequency down or turn him off completely. None of the characters in the game give you a chance to connect with them, because it's the same narrator voicing their lines. So there's no personality, there's no character development that comes through, and it's just a bit frustrating. It leads to the story quest not being as engaging as I mentioned before, and you just don't get to connect with any of the various characters that you meet along your journey. General game audio is also a bit of an oddball. So sometimes it's really good, like the running water, wind, feedback with quests, XP, opening things, and then it just lets itself down with mixing when it comes to like footsteps that just get drowned out, or riding your mount like across a field and you just can't hear anything. And it's feedback when you're fighting as well. Like it's just not punchy. Melee hits, you're not sure if you've connected or not. Gunplay is okay, but again, it's just average. And I feel like there's an opportunity here to really make the audio stand out. And because it doesn't, it affects the other areas of the game. And the main area it affects is combat. So I know there's opinions on combat in this game, and it's going to come down to personal preference. For me, I thought it was okay, but nothing to write home about. So let me explain. You have melee weapons, which include one-handed, dual-wielding, two-handed clubs, two-handed swords, and there's some other special one-off weapons as well that you can get along your journey. The button combos you press are the same across each weapon. They do different things based on the weapon you had equipped. So for instance, a two-handed crush-based weapon, you'll do a jump in the air and smash down onto the floor, and it'll do AoE damage. If you're dual-wielding, you kind of do this like quick stabbing phase over and over on a single target. I think it has a little bit of splash AoE, but different named combo, different look and feel. And so, they've created separate combat systems for the different weapon equips. It's not based on your class, it's based on the weapon that you've got equipped. And I feel like that's pretty cool actually. It's done pretty good. Dual wielding is fun. You can have the big massive buster sword, you can run around with a big axe, and there's even a toilet brush that you can use. Like there's a load of creativity here, and like I said earlier, like the crafting and the weapon creation stuff is really strong in this game. And I feel like when you look at it at this point with the combos and stuff, it just meshes so well together. The only problem is that it feels a bit clunky. There is no lock-on system. There's a kind of a soft lock-on, and it's just easy to miss it. It's easy to mistime things, easy to get interrupted, and some enemies just can keep interrupting you without you being able to stop that. Bit of a mixed bag here, and it's not Dark Souls or anything like that. It's just clunky, and sometimes you can even be pulling off a combo, and because you're not locked on and the enemy's moved and you can't then change direction while you're doing the combo, you just like ground pound the ground, and that's it. Like no one's there. The enemies are like away from that area, and you've just like smashed into the ground yourself, like, and that's it. I feel like that would have been really good to tighten that up a bit. There's a lot going on. There's bullet numbers, colorful kind of combo names as well. It's very Borderlands-esque here when it comes to the combo names. It's very comic book style, and you've got the red numbers for crit, white numbers for normal damage. Lots of info on the screen, and it can easily mask your required button presses in the midst of just mayhem. And And that's both a strength and a drawback, obviously. I tended to stick to ranged weaponry for most of my playthrough, as I found it a bit more enjoyable. I personally just enjoyed it a bit more. But, you know, there's mechanics in the game, you know, there's armored enemies, so you have to, like, they just reflect bullets, so you have to go in and break their armor, then you can shoot them and stuff like that. You know, you just have to learn and adapt, and I feel like the combat system is good, but if it was on its own, it wouldn't bring me back. You know, in fact, it's not the most enjoyable part of this game for me. You know, if it was just a combat-based linear level structure game, I would enjoy this far less. You know, because there'd naturally be more emphasis on the combat. At least with this, there's, you know, you come across pockets of enemies while you're exploring, you beat the hell out of them, get your XP, and then you carry on exploring, and that's what I kind of like about it. It's also not super kind of like near replicant. You're never surrounded by like loads of enemies at once. You know, probably 4 or 5 little ones maybe at max, maybe 1 or 2 big ones max. But that's about it. You're never like surrounded by like 40, 50 enemies or anything like that. So yeah, the combat's kind of short and sweet intervals in amongst while you're exploring. I've heard some people say that they feel like there was, you know, the world was quite empty, that there wasn't necessarily enough enemies in the game. I find that might be the case the more you play, because I've found that enemies don't tend to respawn, like I mentioned before, but I found while I'm generally exploring new areas, I come across enemies and random wildlife and stuff like that here and there fairly frequently. It's not quite as empty as I was maybe expecting it to be based on what I'd heard originally. One thing I really do like are the cool abilities that you can mutate your character with, from either collecting from certain enemies or from bio containers and stuff like that. You can kind of mutate yourself. So you can get like poison spit, or you can get your key kind of energy up from your dark or light aura. So you can get like a mud fist and all that kind of stuff like that. Like really cool little perks. Well, they're not perks actually, you know, they're separate from perks, and they're separate from combos, separate from perks. They're abilities, I guess. That's what we'll call them. And you can have 4 on your keybinds, and that's probably the only downside, is that they've got all these cool abilities. It's probably around almost 20, but you can only have 4 at one time. At least for the key energy side of things, they're very linked to your light or dark aura. So each level you can pick one or the other depending on what aura level you've got. So if you're fully light playthrough, the dark ones will be locked. If you're dark playthrough, the light ones will be locked. And I quite like that, because that will give you some variety and obviously like help you lean into your character build that you're going. I quite like that. Some things can really work well together as well. You know, overall combat for me is there. I see it, it's okay, I appreciate it, but it's not something I thoroughly enjoyed or would rave about. Your mileage may vary here. I just personally didn't click with it as much as I thought I would. I feel it needs a lock-on system. It needs better collision detection. Audio around combat needs to be much better. And it might just be, you know, I come off the back of playing Near Replicant, and that's got some fantastic combat. And maybe I'm just holding this to an unfair standard. But I just found it very clunky compared to what I've played previously in some other games. So to wrap up, I mean, I'm not going to score this game out of 10 or out of 100. I'm going to try and articulate who this game is perhaps for, but you decide if it's something for you. I mean, you've watched this review, you've got this far, so maybe you have a good idea already of it, if it's something that you're going to be interested in picking up. The game developer, Stefan Jankovic, and I hope I haven't just butchered that name, he said in a developer interview with IGN back in 2020 that this game, you know, had influences of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Kung Fu Panda. He mentioned the Batman Arkham series, Devil May Cry, and Ratchet & Clank. And I think, you know, these can be seen at times throughout Biomutant. And that's perhaps what held it back from really shining as its own thing. It seems like we've got a game that's borrowed or evolved a lot of systems, crammed them together, you know, all these systems from different games, crammed them together in the hope of making a super mutant game of sorts across these varying genres. And, you know, I love the world building. I actually prefer Biomutant's world to Breath of the Wild's world. Like, that's probably another discussion point. Cue incoming downvotes. But combat, you know, just isn't great when you delve into the details of the world, and seeing the same village after village, the same ruined house and the bunker for the 5th time starts to lose a bit of its charm. The world can only carry this game so far. It's front-facing combat like Arkham, you know, it's got button combos like Devil May Cry, weapons and quirky characters and biomes like Ratchet & Clank. You know, I can see it, but it feels a bit half-baked And this game, you know, this game could be a 15-hour jaunt if you do a few side quests and, you know, push the main quest line. And it could also easily be 35 plus hours, maybe even 40, 50 hours, you know, exploring, doing everything in the map, you know, all the side quests, exploring every little bit, just taking your time and wandering around the world. And I think it will depend on you as a person, which of those two you'll be. I think Biomutants come out at a time where I think for the next couple of months, we don't really have massive AAAs coming out or anything like that. You know, there's games on the horizon, there's stuff coming out over the next like 6 months, obviously, but it's at a nice time. So if you're in a lull, you're looking for something to play, then this might be a good option. I think if you like the sense of exploration, various enemies to fight, you know, if the crafting speaks out to you, the lure of building your very own little mutant fur baby, this game is 100% for you, and I think you'll have a blast with it. If you're looking for like fast-paced, slick combat, varied quests that are intricate, meaningful, you know, a deep, engaging RPG story, a tearjerker, I'd say this isn't the one for you at all. I think this game is not any of that. You know, this game is priced at around £50, $60, and I think for, you know, AA studio, around 25 people, that's a huge achievement, but I think it's a little bit on the high price end if you are going to be that person that's going to just beeline it, 15 hours, never play it again. You know, you will get your money's worth if you're going to be exploring every nook and cranny, trying multiple builds and different characters, and you know, you enjoy the game. This could be something you can easily put a lot of hours into. I'm really glad I played this. I'm not sure how this game will age. Will this age with well in time? Will we look back at this as a cult classic? Will we look back at this as a what could have been? But I think, you know, it didn't meet my expectations. I'm having fun with it. I've had fun with it. I'm still having fun with it, but it didn't meet my expectations. And perhaps that's on me. After waiting so long from when it was first announced to finally booting it up, it just didn't quite hit the mark for me. It didn't quite click together what I was expecting. It didn't quite hit the mark, but I can't wait to see what the studio Experiment 101 go on to do next. I hear there are patches coming for dialogue and combat based on community feedback, so it'll be interesting to see where it goes, but it's encouraging to know they are listening and that they created something of this scale on their first attempt. Kudos. Remember guys, hit that like button, subscribe. We'll be having other games that we'll be reviewing and other kind of videos coming very soon as well. I know this, I haven't put a video up on YouTube in a fair few months before this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I will look forward to catching you guys all very soon. Like, subscribe, you can catch me over on Twitch as well at twitch.tv/ProRogueBear, and have a great rest of your day.